Happy Thursday, pros. Almost to the weekend. Hope a lot of you on the East Coast are wrapping up your days. Maybe you're catching this just now, or if you're catching this later on, no worries. This is Pro Power Hour. This is a brand new series that we just launched last week. And I'm Chris Weldon. I'm one of the community managers here. We do this series in partnership with our onboarding team. Really just got this, like I said, started last week. And it's going to be happening every Thursday. You can always expect us live here at 3 Pacific, 6 Eastern. I really encourage you, if you're a new pro, if you're new to our community, maybe you're new to Housecall Pro, I encourage you to be here on Thursdays. I usually post what the session's going to be the day of or the day before, so you can get an idea. I think next week, in the coming weeks, we're going to do reporting. And then I think we're also going to talk about invoices coming up soon too. Last week we talked about service plans. We did a refresher on that. And this series is good too. If you're an existing pro, maybe you've been with us a long time, it's hard to keep up with all the features. You might not have adopted everything we have. Or maybe you just want a refresher. You want to bring new staff here. There's so many possibilities with this series. It's really something for everybody. So I'll be monitoring the comments. If you guys have any questions along the way, I encourage you to drop them. I want Phil to introduce himself again. Phil will be joining us. We'll have other onboarding specialists joining us as well. But Phil, if you want to quickly introduce yourself like you did last week, and then we'll get started.
Sure, absolutely. So hello, everybody. My name is Phil. I'm one of the onboarding specialists here. So if you have the Max plan or the Max Plus plan, you have probably talked to myself or one of my teammates, and we showed you how to use the system. I've been with the company for about 2.5 years, almost 3 now in the onboarding role. So I've kind of seen all of these new features roll out one by one. So I'm really excited to show you guys how to use the phone system today.
Yeah, absolutely. Any questions along the way, like I said, I'll be monitoring the thread. I'll be sure to stop Phil kind of in between things. And then if you're catching the recording as well, we'll be sure to pop back in here and get you guys any answers.
All right, sounds good. So first, I'm going to go ahead and just kind of share a little slide deck here, kind of talk about the product, about all the little features that come with the voice system and phone system. Once we finish this, we'll do a little demo so you all can kind of see it live action. And as Chris said, any questions come up, feel free to put them in the chat. So here we go. So one of the newest additions to the voice and phone system is the new block list. So we know that campaign season is kicking off right now. Your phone's ringing off the hook with asking for your money. This is a great way to go ahead and put those into a block list so those calls do not come through and eat up your minutes that come with your phone packaged bundles. Um, so it's really easy feature, and there's many different places within the system. As you'll see, I'll call them out as we go through the demo of where all these little places to go ahead and block these numbers. As on this next slide, as you can see here, there's also kind of shows you all the things within the system that there are several different places on the intake form, as well as when we start putting in call notes, that is where that you can add more of those numbers to the block list, which I said we will go over that in the demo. Another new feature that we just put into the phone system is the ability for call queuing. It's essentially a waiting room for your customers. When they call in, they're going to hear some kind of little music, or you can provide your own recording of, music or whatever you want it to say or go back to the customer. Really just kind of puts them on hold. And what's really great about this is because they can wait on hold and anybody within your office can answer that call when they are ready to take that call. And also it gives the customers the ability that after a set period of time, they can go ahead and leave a voicemail. So they don't have to sit there on hold the whole time. That way you can just listen to the voicemail and then reach out on your own time. Some other features on here include the ring groups. So how I typically coach this with people is like, say you have your group of CSRs or your office staff. You can essentially pick a couple of those members or that entire team as a specific ring group. And when we look at our call trees or call flows, We'll be able to track and see how the phone call comes in. And with these ring groups, we can say, hey, I want it to go to my office staff first before it goes to, let's say, our sales department, things like that. We'll see this as we go through the demo. Transferring calls, that has been a big ask of pros and a lot of feedback that we received. So now we certainly do have it. I will show you in the demos where we can transfer a call. So if your office staff gets a call and they need to transfer it to, say, their lead salesperson or their lead CSR or the owner, they can easily do it with hitting the transfer button. There is agent availability. So if you do have a lot of office staff around you, they can basically set themselves to active and inactive. So, if someone's taking lunch, they can go ahead and make themselves inactive. That way, as the call comes in through the call tree, that person would not be able to answer that specific call. And we also now have the ability to put some of these calls on hold. Before, our phone system was pretty basic, but now as we've started to see more and more improvements and get more feedback, now we can put these calls on hold. So if we need to transfer the call or maybe grab somebody else in the office to answer the call, we can do that without really just leaving the customer hanging while we're still on the phone with them. So things about the agent status is that, as I mentioned, you can set them to unavailable. So when they are listed as unavailable, you as the owners can be able to see this information. And they also have the ability to set themselves available. So when they do get back to their computer, they can go ahead and make themselves available. And there will be a little symbol for when they are actually on a call, so that way we know that they're on calls. Here's a little quick put together of how it's going to look when it comes to transferring calls. Just because I don't have a whole lot of phones here, I'm probably not going to be able to do a full demo of a transfer of a call, but there is the button that has been added right over here that when you click on it, as you can see on your cell phone or on your dial pad that we'll see, it's going to give you the ability to go ahead and transfer a call to another member of your team. We've also made improvements in pricing because this has become such a popular feature. We've decided that for the original, really the basic VoIP plan, it's going to start at about $49 and it's going to cost about 500 minutes and you'll get 2 phone lines with it. The advanced package is going to be $149 with 2,500 minutes with 10 phone lines, and the premium is going to be $299 with 7,500 minutes and 30 phone lines. And what we mean by that is for you'll have your main business line, but if you start to have different numbers for your marketing leads and your marketing resources, we can go ahead and either provide you with a number if you don't have one, or when you start to port your main business line over, you can also port over those extra marketing lead numbers. So that way you don't have to keep changing the numbers on your truck and your business cards and things like that. Voice on mobile, that's also fairly new. But really now within the mobile app, as long as the technician has the mobile app open on their phone, they don't necessarily have to have the screen on with the phone actually on like that. As long as it's running in the background or, it's just kind of open within their phone, a call can come into them and they'll be able to look at it just like they would on their normal cell phone and answer it through the mobile app. If the mobile app is off, they will not be able to receive any of those transfers or any of those calls. So just another picture here because again, we're going to watch a little video of how it's going to look on the mobile device just because it's a little bit easier to show it that way. But as you can see, it looks very similar to them just getting a normal phone call and being able to look at the call log of all of the calls that have been made to them and the ones they've made outbound through the app within the inbox option on the mobile app. So let's go ahead and demo it. So really, I'm going to go ahead and just kind of cover all of our bases. If you have if you know anybody or have already signed up for the VoIP system, you've probably worked with myself or another member of my team, and we've kind of gone through the 3 pillars of the VoIP system. So we're just going to go through that today. So the first thing is just the initial setup. As we go into settings, there is a place under communication. There's the text messages, but there is the option for voice right there. The first thing that's there is the phone numbers. So, as I said, if you choose to port your number, that process can take about 1 to 3 weeks. It really just kind of depends on the carrier and how quickly our team can get get that number over. There's also some information that is required, like a phone bill, and also there's like a CSR report. If you can provide all the pieces of information for the porting process, it just helps that porting process happen faster. For me, I just went ahead and got a new number, which is an option that you can do as well. So just going to get a new number. For me, because I already have my main business line over, that's why I don't have that option, and it's forcing me to pick a lead source. But as I said, if you are looking to get more numbers for new lead sources for you, you can certainly get them from us. So let's say I'm just going to call this one First American, hit next. And very much like the SMS, when you set that up for your account, we do the same thing here. You can go ahead and pick your area code, and we will basically give you a couple of options if we have them. As we can see right now, that 312 area code is pretty popular. So we're going to have to try something else. This does happen, but we do refresh new numbers. I believe it's every month. So maybe I'll try 773. It's a Chicago area, so I would assume it's pretty popular. Let's go with maybe 619. Oh, there's none there either. I'll try one more. Okay, there we go. So just like with the SMS, there are the numbers available here. I can certainly pick any one of those, and that will be my new number for, in this instance, my lead source. But same idea for the main business line. If you don't like any of these options, you can certainly go back to choose a different area code, put in that area code again, and we'll give you 5 new options. And you can keep doing this until we essentially don't give you any more numbers. So that's the first step, is just getting your numbers into the system. The second step is setting up those call flows, or I tend to call them call trees as well. You can create your own from scratch, but we typically give everybody kind of a basic flow or a default flow that's kind of set up, that's pretty universal. And you can certainly delete it if you want by coming to the 3 dots over here, or you can edit it. That way you don't have to start from scratch. In this instance, we'll go ahead and start one from scratch. So here's how the basic call flow, again, how we kind of set you up with this already. So you have the way that the call comes in, call hours, simultaneous ring, send to voicemail, and end call. So for incoming call, this is where we can go ahead and pick which numbers we want to fall into this particular call tree. So I'm going to go ahead and say my main business line. And we have the next step, which is when do we want these phones to be ringing? So we can set it up for 24/7. So as long as that dialer pad is open, or our technicians have the mobile app open and accessible, we can have that phone ring all day. We can grab your numbers from the your business hours from your profile, and we can have the phone set up for basically when your business hours are. There is lastly the option to go ahead and create your own custom hours of when you want your phones to be ringing. So I'll give you an example of what it would look like if we did have closed hours. So as we can see, it kind of breaks off here into how do we want calls to flow when we're open and how we want calls to flow when we're closed. So we do see simultaneous ring is the next step. However, there are options to add steps along the way. So the different options within adding a step you see up here is the first one is play a greeting. Now we do have an AI voice that will go ahead and say anything that you type into this box. If you want, you can certainly upload your own greeting. And we'll also see that you can upload voicemails, as well as I mentioned, that ring back music for while they're waiting on hold. The one thing about these, though, is they have to be MP3s. So some other steps that we have here. So we have the play the greeting. We can add additional steps. One would be forward to. So the way this works is because I was working with one of my clients this morning on this, is that you can have basically all of your employees that are within your system, and we can have the call be transferred to them. And it's the number that you assign to them when you set them up initially in the system under employees and permissions. There is the option to send it to an external number, but the thing to note there is that if ever the call goes to an external number and that number doesn't answer, the customer leaves a voicemail, it is going to stay on that cell phone or on that external number's line. So it does not come back to Housecall Pro. So simultaneous ring, as I talked about. So with that, we can have the call ring to all of the phones that basically everyone has the dial pad open and they'll be able to answer the call. We can choose a specific employee. So if we want the call to go to, again, a specific employee, we can certainly pick one. And there is the option for ring group, which I discussed a little bit earlier, and we're going to see in a moment how to build those ring groups. So again, if I wanted to go to my CSR group before it goes to anybody else, we can certainly make that happen. The call queue, as I mentioned, that's the new feature. So in here, we have some hold music. So if you want to use what we have, it's pretty groovy, but you can always go ahead and upload your own file if you want to. And as I mentioned, here's where you can go ahead and set up like how long you want them to be able to wait on hold before leaving a voicemail. And then really the last stop is send to voicemail, which is very similar to the greeting. You can have the AI do it for you, type it out, and it'll say exactly what you typed, or you can set up the audio file, and then that way you can have your actual voice be telling the customer, "Thanks for calling." So if we back out here, we can kind of see my call tree. I didn't really do this how I would recommend doing it, but just to make it all make sense, let's kind of set it up how I would want to for my business. So during open hours, play the greeting, go to my CSR group. Maybe they're not available. If they can't answer the call, I'm going to have it go to me. And if I'm unable to answer it, it's going to go to voicemail and then end the call. Question I tend to get, and somebody may have thrown this up in the chat already, is how does this work with Housecall Pro Assist? So Housecall Pro Assist is our in-house reception team. So if you have that particular service, the way to match that with your voice system here is that actually when it goes to, let's say I'm using them for those closed hours, Housecall Pro Assist gives you their specific number for you. So what we do to set that up is we simply forward it to an external number, and that gets forwarded to the Housecall Pro Assist team. All right, so now that we have my call flow all set up, we'll go ahead and hit create call flow. This name has already been taken, so maybe I'll call it something else, but you can build as many call flows as you want. I was helping somebody the other day because of the holiday that just passed by. They wanted their phone system set up a specific way for holidays, so you can set that up and set up as many as you want. All right, so the next thing when it comes to setup is the audio library. As I mentioned, instead of having to go into each one of those steps to upload that greeting, upload that voicemail, upload that hold music, you can just come right into here, into the audio library, and upload all of your own files, and this is where they'll be stored. Ring groups. So as I talked about, setting up ring groups. I already have my CSRs here, but we'll look at just setting up a new group right here. So as we can see, all of my employees here, they have the web phone. And so I can say, hey, I want Andrew, Chris, and Kane to be the ones to be in one specific ring group so that when the call comes in, I want it to go to these three people first. This is strictly a phone account, so that's why everybody says web phone. But when you start setting this up on your side and your technicians start going into the mobile app on their phone, there is going to be an option for cell phone. So there'll be Chris Garcia with a web phone, and then next to it will be Chris Garcia with a cell phone. So that way you can link off those particular items. So if Chris is typically not in the office with the web dialer open, we can set it to his cell phone. So while he's out on the road, calls can still go to him because he's part of the ring group. The next step in setup is recording calls. So we have made improvements to this because before we really only used to record kind of inbound calls, but now we can record the outbound calls. And in doing so, especially with the government kind of cracking down on the recordings of phone calls, if you do have this feature on, as you can see, if it's off, nothing's there. But as we turn it on, here's basically gives you the option of we'll have an automated voice simply say, hey, this call is being recorded. Or you can have the option to go ahead and turn that off. And this is letting you know that if you don't let your customer know that you're recording the call and do it, that is illegal. So you are saying that you are going to accept that you don't want our AI voice telling the person that it's going to be recorded. So now it is on you to go ahead and make sure that your CSRs are answering the call saying this call will be recorded. Next is masking calls. So I know this is what a lot of people love and this is what they want. And it's really simple. It's really just turning the switch on and off. And what this means is that if one of your technicians is out on the road and wants to call a customer, when they call the customer through the mobile app, instead of giving the customer their direct cell phone line, it's going to give them their business line when they look at their phone. So they know that it's the business calling them and not just some random number. The last option is the block list. So here is step one of our first stop, I would say, for when it comes to blocking numbers. You can simply come right here to the block list and add any numbers that you want to block. That way they don't come through. So before I go into demoing an actual call, Chris, any questions that have come up?
I'm not seeing any questions right now. I know this is a very niche feature, only applies to a lot of pros that are using it. So we'll definitely, any questions I see posted in the group, I'll be tagging people in here later. But I think we can keep going for the moment.
All right, sounds good. So with the mobile, or I'm sorry, with the web portal, when you have the phone system, you'll see up here at the top, there is the little phone icon. Mine's already set to available. But in order to take calls, they have to click on the little phone and have this dialer pad open. As you saw, it said that I was idle, but now I have my phone open and I can go ahead and start making and receiving calls. So up here at the top, as it was kind of pointing out earlier, is where you can go ahead and set yourself to unavailable and then make yourself available. And you have the ability to call the customer if you are making outbound calls from essentially any of those marketing leads. So if they call you from the number on your truck, you can say, hey, I want to use that one. That's the number that I'm going to call them for. So here's how it's going to look when a phone call comes in. All right, I'm gonna have to back up, and I think it's because we set up that new call tree. Um, Give me a second here. Sorry, let me take one more look. Something looks like the call is not coming through. There we go. All available web phones. There we go. Okay, so it was just a error within my call tree. So now the call is coming in. As we can see, there's the answer button right there. I'll go ahead and answer it. And you can see right here, here's all of the little options. So we can put the customer on hold. We can go ahead and forward the call to another employee or an external number if we need to. We can add a call. This was kind of the older way of doing transfers, but now we have the new button right here where you can just transfer the call. Obviously, you can mute the call, and you can stop the recording and hang up. So as we saw, the call came in from one of my very common customers. So the intake form automatically pulled up, and we can see here that already has the customer's information, already has, their address. And for those of you who haven't used the intake form before, this is our intake form. So in here, this is where I typically coach people to go ahead and put any information that they get on the call from the customer. Underneath it, we have this request guide. I always tell my clients is you can use as much or as little, or you don't have to use any of it at all. But what it does is it passes more information to our estimator, to our technician, or just stays in our system so that we can see that within our call notes. So I'll just go ahead and do a couple of them over here. Underneath is where you can go ahead and put in some information that helps with your reporting, because I know reporting is very important. So for business units, for those of you who don't know how to use the business units, it's really geared for the bigger companies that have, like, as we see here, a plumbing division, an HVAC division, a sales division. What I typically tell for the smaller companies is that if you have the same two people that go in the same truck every day, you can go ahead and put in truck 1, truck 2. It doesn't assign the job if you do create a job to those two people, but it basically tags it for reporting so that we can look at all the work of one team versus another team. Job type, basically quick way to go ahead and kind of put a tab or like mark what these jobs are. You'll typically come up with these on your own. Common ones I see: install, repair, residential, commercial, things like that. Lead source, since they called my main business line, it doesn't populate right there, but if they call in from one of those lead sources, it will go ahead and say like American Standard here. So whichever one they called in from. Then with tags over here, some of you, I'm sure you're probably familiar with tags. So really, these are job tags where we can go ahead and say, hey, this job is in phase 1, or maybe we need some materials for this particular job. Maybe we need a permit. And then the last thing on here is you can go ahead and start adding items just like you would on your estimates and invoices. Also from the intake form, we can go ahead and put the job onto the schedule. So while we're on the phone with the customer, we can find the best time to put them into the calendar. And if this is a new customer, this third option for the contact information, really this is where your team can go ahead and get all the information for the customer. So now that I'm done talking with my customer here, I'm going to go ahead and save as. You can save it directly as a job. You can save it directly as an estimate. There's our second stop on the spam train here. So you can go ahead and mark it as spam right there. And there's a place for call notes. So with the call notes, there's our next stop on the spam train, add it to the block list right there. But we can, and there's another one right there, but we have all of these options right here to mark what this call is about. So For estimates and job created, I typically say this isn't the way to go in that particular route, because when you start a job or an estimate, it's already going to mark it as a job was created or an estimate was created. So really, this is for everything else, wrong number, complaint, vendor, other call, whatever we want to say it as. As you can see, the notes from the intake form here get added to what was talked about on the call. You can go ahead and change anything on here. So, if that customer decides they don't want to use it anymore, we can go ahead and get rid of it or put in our own notes. All right, so now we've saved the call into the system. So really the next step is looking at your call log. So right up here in your inbox, where your text messages live, this is also where your call log is going to live. So we can look at all of our calls, our missed calls, inbound, outbound, and we can look at our voicemails as well. So we can see here, here's the call that we just got from Mezzi, and we can get some just kind of high level look at what that call was about, the reason for the call. Questions that I get all the time is, what's object created for? You are 100% correct if you guessed that it was going to be for jobs and estimates. So this particular call here, a job was created. And so there's the job right there. And I can just click on it to go ahead and open that job. So another thing within your call logs is that for like this particular call, quickly, you can see over here is we can give the customer a call back as well as listen to the recording. But if we click on the specific call, this window pops up and gives us more information about the call. So we can see the start time of the call, the duration, which specific number that they called in from, what that reason is, and we can make edits to those reasons and those edits. We can see which employee answered the call, listen to the recording, and another stop on the spam train, block that number. So that's pretty much the ins and outs of taking a phone call. So then really the last, I guess, pillar here for the VoIP system and the phone system is the reporting side of it. So if we go on up to the reporting tab, we do have voice reporting. And within the voice reporting, we can look at call conversion by employee. So that way we can look at each employee and see how many calls have come in, how many of those turned into estimates, how many of them turned into jobs, how many inbound calls they're taking, and how many outbound calls they're making. Call type. So as we go ahead, job created, estimate created, vendors, complaints, we can go ahead and pull these reports and just kind of see what our calls are looking like when they're coming in and the ones that are going out. Then lastly is by date. So we can go by each day, take a look at all of those opportunity calls, again, to see which calls turned into leads, estimates, jobs, things like that. So that's pretty much everything on the web portal. Next, I'm going to go ahead and just play a little video here of how it's going to look when you are getting a call on the mobile app. So call comes in, we answer the call, and just very similarly, when you push the more button that was down there, that opens up this create new option. So you can either go to intake, which will pull up the intake form, or we can go directly to call notes. So in this option, we went to the intake. So as you can see, it's somewhat similar, not necessarily the exact same form, but it's asks all the same information. So we get the customer information. There's the request guide. So again, we can go ahead and pull up the request guide, get that information. All right, so now Julie's in the system. We can even put it on the schedule. And then lastly, we can also start adding the line items. Hit the save as. There's the option to save as job estimate or lead. We kind of split that up as you saw in the beginning. That's where that gives you the options. Instead of going into the intake form, you can go right into call notes. So that's really where you'll be able to make that change there. And as you saw, there's the ability to turn off the, you're not able to turn off the recording as a technician because that is an admin, admin permission that admins have to make that change. And so, yeah, that's really it for the phone system on the phone. So Chris, any questions?
Yeah. We only had one question come up from Frank Wynn, and Phil, I don't know if you know anything more than I do. He asked about having if we're gonna have an auto attendant, if that's coming anytime soon. I know we are working on some things. I can't really share much or when that's gonna be. I don't know if you know anything differently.
That's honestly the first I've heard of it. So they keep pretty tight around here.
Yeah, yeah. Franklin, if you are using HCPA, HCP Assist, there is something in alpha right now. We might be able to get you onto it. Um, but I'd have to find out. So just reach out to me or to Chris Nordenson and we'll get you connected. Um, but yeah, I don't see any other questions. I'll give it another second or two. Pros, if you are catching the recording later, just drop your questions below. Take a look. And then if you're interested in voice, maybe you're not using voice right now, you've been wondering about it, you watched the session, now you're interested, just comment voice, just say voice below. And I'll make sure to get you connected with a success advisor. And then after that, maybe you'll get connected with Phil, who knows, and get fully onboarded and set up. But yeah, I'm looking. I don't see anything. Jen, it's good to see you. Um, Franklin, let's see. Yeah, we did share a little bit about that, but I don't have any timelines or info. It's pretty tight-lipped, but I might be able to ask Roland for some info. So we'll get back with you, Franklin. Um, Otherwise, yeah, we'll see everybody again next week. Thank you, Phil. I don't know next week if we're going to be doing reporting or if we're going to be doing invoices. So it'll be one or the other, and I'll announce it probably on Monday. So just be on the lookout for that. And then we'll see everyone around in the community and the group.
Sounds good. Pleasure helping you all.
Thanks, Phil. Have a good week.
Bye.
Bye.